They sold me like livestock, not in whispers or behind closed doors. No, they did it with champagne and contracts, in front of everyone who mattered. My own family, the people who raised me just enough to make me useful. And now I'm standing at the end of an aisle in a dress that costs more than my entire childhood, about to marry a man whose name makes grown men flinch, Lucien Voss, the devil himself. And I'm just the girl nobody wanted, until they needed something to trade. If you want to see how far survival can take you, stay until the end. Hit like and drop your city in the comments. I want to know how far this story travels. The dress was suffocating. White silk, hand-stitched lace, a veil so long it pooled behind me like spilled milk. It was beautiful in the way expensive things always are, cold, flawless, impersonal. I stood in front of the mirror in a room that wasn't mine, in a house that never felt like home, and tried to remember the last time anyone in this family had looked me in the eye. I couldn't. Stop fidgeting. My stepmother's voice cut through the silence, sharp, clipped. She didn't look at me when she spoke, just adjusted the clasp of her diamond bracelet and tilted her head toward the makeup artist hovering near my shoulder. "Fix her face," she said. "She looks half dead." The artist nodded quickly, reaching for a brush. I didn't move, didn't blink. I'd learned a long time ago that stillness was safer than reaction. Eleanor Hale, my stepmother, though she hated the term, was a woman built from glass and steel, beautiful in a way that demanded attention, cold in a way that kept people at arm's length. She'd married my father when I was 7, a year after my mother died. I remembered her arrival like I remembered winter, sudden, unforgiving, and permanent. She never hit me, never screamed. She didn't have to. Neglect was her weapon of choice, and she wielded it with precision. "Your father wants you downstairs in 10 minutes, she said, smoothing her own dress. "Don't embarrass us." Us, as if I'd ever been part of that. I watched her leave, the click of her heels fading down the hallway. The makeup artist worked in silence, dabbing at my face with powders and creams I didn't care about. When she finished, I looked like someone else. Someone polished, someone valuable, someone worth selling. "You're all set," she whispered, packing up her kit. She hesitated, then added quietly, "You look beautiful." I didn't respond. Beauty didn't matter today. Today, I was currency. The Hale family had money, old money, the kind that came with legacy and expectation and a suffocating amount of pressure to maintain appearances. My father, Richard Hale, had spent decades building the family empire into something untouchable. Real estate, investments, political connections that ran so deep they were practically underground. But empires crack. And ours had been crumbling for months. Bad deals, worse investments, enemies who'd waited years for a chance to strike. I didn't know all the details. Nobody told me anything. But I'd heard enough whispered conversations, seen enough late-night meetings to understand the truth. We were bleeding money, and desperate people do desperate things. I descended the staircase slowly, one hand trailing along the banister. The house was full of people, staff rushing around, florists arranging last-minute centerpieces, someone shouting about seating charts. Nobody looked at me. My father stood near the front entrance, adjusting his cufflinks. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with silver hair and a smile that had charmed investors for decades. But today, the smile looked strained, tight around the edges. He glanced up when I reached the bottom step. Aria. Not sweetheart, not honey, just my name. Flat, transactional. "You ready?" he asked. I almost laughed. Ready. As if I'd had any choice in this. "Yes," I said quietly. He nodded once, then turned away. That was it. No pep talk, no reassurance, no, "I'm sorry this is happening to you," because he wasn't sorry. I was useful now. For the first time in my life, I had value, and he was cashing in. The wedding was being held at the Hale estate. Our estate, technically, though it never felt like mine. The gardens had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. White flowers everywhere, silk draping between the trees, chairs lined up in perfect rows. A string quartet played softly near the altar. It should have been beautiful. It felt like a funeral. Guests filled the seats, Business associates, politicians, people whose names I recognized from news articles. They wore expensive suits and fake smiles, whispering behind gloved hands. I could feel their eyes on me as I stepped outside, could hear the murmurs. That's her. The daughter. Poor thing. I kept my chin up, my spine straight. I'd spent my whole life being invisible in this family. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break now. The music shifted. The quartet began playing the processional. My father appeared at my side, offering his arm. I took it, because what else was I supposed to do? Smile, he muttered under his breath. I didn't. Lucien Voss stood at the end of the aisle. I'd seen pictures of him before, articles, news clippings. The man was a ghost in the public eye. No social media, no interviews, no unnecessary appearances. But his reputation preceded him like a shadow, ruthless, calculating, untouchable. He controlled half the city's underground operations, smuggling, gambling, information brokerage. The kind of man who could make people disappear with a phone call. The kind of man the Hale family would never associate with, unless they were desperate. He was tall, taller than I'd expected. Dark hair, sharp jawline, a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. But it was his eyes that stopped me cold. Gray, storm cloud gray, and completely unreadable. He watched me approach with the same expression someone might wear while reviewing a contract. Clinical, detached. I was a deal to him, nothing more. My father handed me off like I was a piece of luggage. No words, no ceremony, just a brief nod toward Lucien, then he stepped back and took his seat. I stood there, facing a man I didn't know, about to bind myself to him for reasons that had nothing to do with love. The officiant cleared his throat. Dearly beloved. I stopped listening. The ceremony was short, efficient. No vows, no personal touches, just the legal necessities spoken aloud in front of witnesses. Do you, Lucien Voss, take Aria Hale to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. His voice was low, steady. He didn't look at me when he said it. And do you, Aria Hale, take Lucien Voss to be your lawfully wedded husband? I hesitated. Just for a second, long enough for the silence to stretch uncomfortably. Long enough for my father to shift in his seat, for Eleanor to glare at me from the front row. Long enough for Lucien's gaze to finally meet mine. There was no warmth in his eyes, but there was something else, something I couldn't quite name. Curiosity, maybe. I do, I whispered. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. No kiss. Lucien didn't move, didn't reach for me, just gave a single nod, then turned and walked back down the aisle. I followed, because I had nowhere else to go. The reception was worse. It was held in the estate's ballroom, another display of wealth masquerading as celebration. Tables covered in white linens, crystal chandeliers, champagne flowing like water. People laughed and danced and toasted to a marriage they knew nothing about. I sat at the head table beside Lucien, my hands folded in my lap. He hadn't spoken to me since the ceremony. My father gave a speech, something about family and partnership and new beginnings, lies, all of it. But the guests clapped anyway, raising their glasses like this was a real wedding. Lucien didn't drink, didn't eat, just sat there, scanning the room with those unreadable eyes. Are you always this quiet? I asked finally, keeping my voice low. He glanced at me. Are you always this talkative? It wasn't quite a joke, but it wasn't cruel either. I'm trying to figure out what happens next, I said. Next, we leave. And go where? Somewhere that isn't here. That was all he offered. I wanted to push, to demand answers, but something in his expression told me it wouldn't matter. Lucien Voss didn't explain himself. He just acted. We left an hour later. No grand exit, no fanfare. Just Lucien standing abruptly, buttoning his jacket and walking toward the door. I scrambled to follow, my dress tangling around my legs. A black car waited outside, sleek, expensive, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. A driver opened the door. Lucien slid in without a word. I hesitated. This was it. The point of no return. I could walk away right now, refuse to get in, cause a scene. But what would that accomplish? My family had already made their choice. I was collateral now. A bargaining chip exchanged for whatever deal my father had struck with this man. I got in the car. The door closed behind me with a soft click. Lucian sat on the opposite seat, legs crossed, one arm draped over the back. He didn't look at me, just stared out the window as the car pulled away from the estate. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Home." "Who's home?" "Yours now." I didn't know what to say to that. The city blurred past the window, familiar streets giving way to unfamiliar ones. We drove for what felt like an hour, moving farther from the Hale estate, farther from everything I'd ever known. Finally, the car turned into a gated driveway. The mansion, loomed ahead. Modern architecture, all glass and steel and sharp angles. It looked like something out of a magazine. Cold, pristine, intimidating. The car stopped. The driver opened my door. I stepped out, staring up at the building. "This is where you live?" I asked. Lucien came to stand beside me. "This is where we live." The weight of that statement settled over me like a heavy coat. "Come on," he said, already walking toward the entrance. I followed. Again. The inside was just as imposing as the outside. High ceilings, marble floors, minimalist furniture arranged with surgical precision. Everything was clean, sharp, expensive. It didn't feel like a home, it felt like a showroom. "Your room is upstairs," Lucian said, shrugging off his jacket. "Second door on the left." I blinked. "My room?" "Yes." "We're not—" "No." The word was final. Absolute. "This marriage is a contract," he continued, loosening his tie. "Nothing more. You're here because your father owed me, and this was the price. I don't expect anything from you beyond playing the part when necessary." I should have felt relieved, should have been grateful that he wasn't demanding anything, but instead I felt hollow. "What part?" I asked. "The dutiful wife. When we're in public, you stay close. You smile when appropriate. You don't contradict me, that's all. And when we're not in public, you do whatever you want." He said it so casually. Like freedom was that simple. "I'll have someone bring your things tomorrow," he added. "If you need anything tonight, there's staff on call." Then he turned and walked away, disappearing down a hallway. I stood there in the middle of that cold, perfect house, wearing a wedding dress that wasn't mine, married to a man I didn't know. And for the first time all day, I let myself feel it. The anger, the grief, the bone-deep exhaustion of being unwanted. I sank onto the nearest couch and buried my face in my hands. I didn't cry. I'd run out of tears years ago. The room Lucian had mentioned was massive. King-size bed, walk-in closet, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was decorated in soft grays and whites, elegant, impersonal, like a high-end hotel room. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my wedding dress, and stared at nothing. This was my life now. A contract, a transaction, a role to play. I thought about my mother. She'd died when I was 6, cancer, quick and brutal. I barely remembered her face anymore, just fragments. Her laugh, the way she used to braid my hair, the last thing she'd said to me. "Be strong, Arya." I'd tried. I'd survived a family that didn't want me, a stepmother who tolerated me at best, a father who only noticed me when I was useful. And now I was here, married to a stranger, alone. I didn't sleep that night. I changed out of the dress, folding it carefully and setting it aside. Found a t-shirt in one of the drawers, oversized, plain, probably meant for guests. Crawled into bed and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the house, I heard movement, footsteps, a door closing. Lucien, probably. I wondered what he was thinking, if he thought about me at all, or if I was just another task checked off his list. Acquire wife. Done. The thought should have hurt. It didn't. I was too tired to care. Morning came too quickly. I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows, disoriented and groggy. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then it all came rushing back. The wedding, the car, the house. Lucien. I dragged myself out of bed and into the attached bathroom. Shower, change, armor for whatever today would bring. When I finally ventured downstairs, I found Lucien Antoine in the kitchen. He was dressed casually, dark jeans, black t-shirt, barefoot, coffee in hand, phone in the other, scrolling through something with a frown. He glanced up when I entered. "Morning," he said. "Morning." Silence. I poured myself coffee, just to have something to do with my hands. "Your things arrived an hour ago," he said. "They're in your room." "Thanks." More silence. "There's food if you're hungry," he added, nodding toward the counter. "Pastries, fruit, enough to feed 10 people." "I'm fine." He studied me for a moment, then set his phone down. "We need to talk." My stomach tightened. "About what?" "Rules." "Of course. Rules. Expectations. The contract." I sat down across from him, cradling my coffee like a lifeline. "Go ahead," I said. "You have access to everything in this house," he began. "Money, cars, security. If you want to go somewhere, tell Marcus. He's head of security. He'll arrange it." I nodded slowly. "You're free to work, study, pursue whatever interests you have. I don't care what you do with your time, as long as it doesn't interfere with appearances." "Appearances," I repeated. "We'll attend events together, dinners, galas, anything public. You play the role, I play mine. That's the deal." "And in private?" "In private, we're strangers who happen to share a house." It shouldn't have stung. It did, anyway. "Anything else?" I asked. He hesitated, just for a second. "Don't trust your family," he said quietly. "They'll come around eventually, asking for favors, trying to use you. Don't let them." "I won't." "I mean it, Arya. They sold you. They don't get to pretend otherwise." The way he said my name, firm, certain, made something twist in my chest. "I know what they did," I said. "I'm not stupid." "I didn't say you were." We stared at each other across the table. "Why did you agree to this?" I asked suddenly. "You could have made a deal with my father some other way. Why marriage?" His expression didn't change. "Because marriage is binding, legal, harder to break than a handshake." "That's it?" "That's it." I didn't believe him, but I also didn't push. The days blurred together after that. I explored the house. Massive didn't begin to cover it. Gym, library, home theater, a pool. I hadn't noticed before, tucked away behind glass doors. I avoided Lucien as much as possible. Not because he was cruel. He wasn't. But because every time I saw him, I was reminded of what I was. A transaction. A means to an end. Staff came and went. Housekeepers, security, a chef who left meals in the fridge. They were polite. Professional. They didn't ask questions. I spent most of my time in the library, reading books I'd never had time for before, losing myself in other people's stories because my own felt too heavy. A week passed before my father called. I stared at my phone, watching his name flash across the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "Hello? Arya." His voice was warm, too warm, fake. "How are you settling in?" "Fine." "Good. Good. Listen, I wanted to check in, see how things are going with Lucien." I almost laughed. Check in, as if he cared. "Things are fine," I said flatly. "I'm glad to hear it. You know, this arrangement, it's good for everyone, for the family, for you." "Is it?" It wasn't a question. He cleared his throat. "I also wanted to mention, there's a charity gala next month. Your stepmother and I will be attending. It would be good for you and Lucien to make an appearance. Show unity." "I'll ask him." "You do that." A pause. Then softer. "You're doing the right thing, Arya. You're helping the family." Helping the family. The family that had ignored me for 23 years. The family that had traded me like livestock. "I have to go," I said. "Of course. We'll talk soon." I hung up. My hands were shaking. That night I found Lucien in his office. The door was open, so I knocked anyway. He looked up from his laptop, expression unreadable. "What is it?" "My father called." "And?" "He wants us at some gala next month. Says it would be good for appearances." Lucien leaned back in his chair, considering. "We'll go," he said finally. "Just like that?" "It's part of the deal." "Right. The deal." I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. "Arya." I glanced back. If they try to corner you at that gala, your father, your stepmother, anyone, you walk away. You don't engage. Understood? Why do you care? His gaze held mine. Because you're under my protection now, whether you like it or not. Something in his tone made my throat tighten. Understood, I whispered. He nodded once, then returned to his laptop. Dismissed. The gala was 3 weeks away. 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks to pretend I was okay. I threw myself into routines. Morning runs. Reading. Avoiding my phone when my father's name appeared. Lucien and I fell into a rhythm. We didn't talk much, didn't share meals, but sometimes, late at night, I'd hear him moving around the house. And sometimes, I wondered if he was as lonely as I was. Probably not. He'd chosen this life. I'd been forced into it. 2 days before the gala, a package arrived. A dress. Midnight blue, floor-length, elegant without being flashy. A note was pinned to the hanger. For the gala. L. I stared at it for a long time. He'd thought about me, enough to pick out a dress, enough to make sure I had something appropriate. It was a small thing, but it felt enormous. Quotes. The night of the gala arrived too quickly. I stood in front of the mirror smoothing down the dress. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. A knock at the door. Come in. Lucien stepped inside, adjusting his cufflinks. He stopped when he saw me. For just a moment, his expression shifted. Something flickered in those gray eyes. Then it was gone. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. He offered his arm. I took it, and together we stepped into the lion's den. The ballroom was exactly what I expected. Chandeliers dripping crystal, marble floors polished to a mirror shine, servers weaving through clusters of people in designer suits and gowns that cost more than most people made in a year. The air smelled like expensive perfume and older money. I felt every eye turn toward us the moment we walked in. Lucien's hand rested at the small of my back. Light, barely there, but unmistakable. A claim, a statement. I kept my expression neutral, my spine straight, remembering his instructions. Play the part. Mr. Voss? Mrs. Voss? A man approached, silver-haired and smiling too wide. What a pleasure to see you both. Senator Crawford, Lucien said smoothly, shaking his hand. Good to see you. The senator's gaze slid to me, assessing. And this must be your lovely bride. Congratulations on the marriage. Thank you, I said, forcing a smile. How are you finding married life? It's an adjustment. Lucien's hand pressed slightly firmer against my back. A warning, maybe. Or reassurance. I'm sure it is, the senator said, still smiling. Well, you've married well. Lucien's quite the catch. I wanted to laugh, catch, as if I'd had any choice in the matter. If you'll excuse us, Lucien said, already steering me away, we need to make the rounds. We moved through the crowd like that for the next hour. Stop, smile, exchange pleasantries with people whose names I wouldn't remember. Lucien handled it all with practiced ease, his expression never shifting, his voice never wavering. He was good at this. Too good. I wondered how many of these events he'd attended, how many deals he'd brokered over champagne and fake laughter. You're doing fine, he murmured at one point, his mouth close to my ear. I feel like a puppet. You are a puppet, so am I. That's how this works. His honesty was almost refreshing. We reached the bar, and Lucien ordered us both drinks. I took mine gratefully, downing half of it in one go. Slow down, he said. Why? Isn't that what people do at these things? Drink until they can tolerate each other? His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Fair point. I scanned the room, searching for my father. I spotted him near the back, talking to a group of men in expensive suits. Eleanor stood beside him, laughing at something one of them said. They looked happy, comfortable, like they hadn't just sold their daughter. They're here, I said quietly. Lucien followed my gaze. I know. Are we going to talk to them? Do you want to? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. Then we won't. Simple as that. But of course, it wasn't. Because my father spotted us a few minutes later, and his face lit up in that practiced way of his. He excused himself from his group and started walking over, Eleanor trailing behind him. Shit, I muttered. Lucien's hand found mine, squeezing once. Remember what I said. You don't engage. Arya, my father said warmly, reaching us. There you are. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Sweetheart, he'd never called me that before. Thank you, I said stiffly. Lucien. He extended his hand. Good to see you. Lucien shook it, but his expression was ice. Richard, quite the turnout tonight, isn't it? My father continued, oblivious or pretending to be. Eleanor and I were just saying how wonderful it is to see you both. Eleanor smiled thinly. Yes, wonderful. She looked me up and down, her gaze lingering on the dress. I could see the calculation in her eyes, the mental notes she was taking. How are you settling in? My father asked, leaning in like we were sharing a secret. Everything going well? Fine, I said. Good, good. You know, I was hoping we could talk later, maybe set up a dinner, just the four of us, catch up. Catch up. Like we were a normal family. We're busy, Lucien said, his tone flat. My father's smile faltered. Of course, I understand, but surely... We're busy, Lucien repeated, sharper this time. The air shifted. My father's smile turned brittle. Right, he said slowly. Well, perhaps another time. Eleanor touched his arm. Richard, we should... Actually, my father interrupted, looking at me. There is one thing. A business matter. I was hoping to discuss it with you, Arya. Privately. Lucien's grip on my hand tightened. No, I said. My father blinked. Excuse me? I said no, I'm not discussing anything with you. Not tonight, not ever. His expression hardened. Arya, don't be ridiculous. We're done here, Lucien said, stepping between us. His voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. You got what you wanted, Richard. The deal's done. Don't push your luck. For a moment, I thought my father might argue, but something in Lucien's gaze stopped him. He forced another smile. Of course. No harm in asking. Then he turned and walked away, Eleanor following without a word. I exhaled slowly, my hand shaking. You okay? Lucien asked. Yeah, I think so. Come on, let's get some air. He led me through the crowd, out onto a balcony overlooking the city. The cool night air hit my face, and I sucked in a breath, trying to steady myself. I'm sorry, I said after a moment. For what? For making a scene. Lucien leaned against the railing, looking out at the lights. You didn't make a scene, you set a boundary. There's a difference. He looked angry. He'll get over it, and if he doesn't, that's his problem. I joined him at the railing, wrapping my arms around myself. Thank you, I said quietly, for stepping in. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. You didn't have to do that. He glanced at me, something unreadable in his expression. You're my wife. Legally, if not in any other sense, that means something. Does it? To me, it does. I didn't know what to say to that. We stood there in silence for a while, the noise from the gala muffled behind us. It was almost peaceful. Almost. Can I ask you something? I said eventually. Depends on the question. Why did you really agree to marry me? And don't say it was just business. I don't believe you. He was quiet for a long moment. Your father came to me 3 months ago, he said finally. Desperate. Drowning in debt. He offered me 12 different deals, none of them worth my time. Then he mentioned you. My stomach dropped. He offered me. Yes, said you were available, that a marriage alliance would benefit us both. And you said yes. Not at first. I looked at him sharply. What changed your mind? He met my gaze, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something real in his eyes, something raw. I looked into you, he said, pulled up everything I could find, school records, medical files, even old social media posts, and you know what I found? I shook my head. Nothing. You were a ghost, Arya. No friends, no social life, no presence. It was like you didn't exist. And then I found a report from when you were 16. A teacher flagged you for looking malnourished. CPS came to your house, but your father charmed them, made it go away. I swallowed hard, the memory flooding back. I'd forgotten about that. I saw who they were, Lucien continued. Your family, the way they treated you, and I realized that if I didn't agree to this, they'd find someone else, someone who might not give you the same options. So you married me out of pity? No. I married you because I could, because I have the power to offer you a choice they never did. I stared at him, something twisting in my chest. That's not pity, he added. That's pragmatism. You get a way out. I get leverage over your father. Everyone wins. Except I'm still trapped. Are you? The question hung between us. You can leave any time you want, he said quietly. I've never locked the doors, never told you where you can or can't go. If you want out, Arya, walk. I won't stop you. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. Because he was right. I wasn't trapped. Not really. I was just afraid. Before I could figure out what to say, the balcony door opened. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a security earpiece. Mr. Voss, he said, we have a situation. Lucien's expression shifted instantly. What kind of situation? Someone's asking questions about Mrs. Voss. I went cold. Who? Lucien asked, his voice sharp. A reporter. Says he has information about the marriage. Wants to know if it's legitimate. Lucien cursed under his breath. Where is he? Main hall, near the press area. Keep him there. I'll handle it. The man nodded and disappeared back inside. Lucien turned to me. Stay here. What's going on? Someone's digging, probably paid by your father. My father wouldn't what? Use you for leverage? Arya, he already did that. This is just the next step. I wanted to argue, wanted to defend my father, even though I knew Lucien was right. Just stay here, Lucien repeated. I'll take care of it. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him. I stood there alone, my heart pounding. This was my life now. Deals and leverage and people asking questions I didn't know how to answer. I gripped the railing, staring out at the city. Somewhere down there, people were living normal lives, going to normal jobs, having normal problems. I'd never been one of them. I didn't know if I ever would be. The door opened again. I turned, expecting Lucien. It was Eleanor. She stepped onto the balcony, closing the door behind her. Her expression was unreadable. Arya, she said. I straightened. What do you want? To talk. I have nothing to say to you. She moved closer, her heels clicking against the stone. You embarrassed your father tonight. Good. Her eyes narrowed. Don't be childish. This marriage is bigger than your feelings. You have responsibilities. I laughed. Actually laughed. Responsibilities? To who? The family that ignored me for 23 years? The people who sold me? We gave you a home, food, education. Don't act like you were some poor little orphan. You gave me the bare minimum, and only because it looked bad not to. Eleanor's jaw tightened. You're being dramatic. Am I? Tell me, Eleanor, when was the last time you asked me how I was doing? When was the last time anyone in this family actually cared? We care enough to secure your future. You secured your own future. I was just the price. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. Listen to me very carefully. You may be married to Lucien Voss now, but you're still a Hale. That name comes with expectations. If you embarrass us, you'll what? I interrupted. Cut me off? Disown me? You already did that. We can make your life very difficult, Arya. No, you can't. Not anymore. Her expression flickered. Just for a second, I saw something like fear. You think Lucien will protect you? She asked. I know he will. For how long? Until the novelty wears off? Until he gets bored and finds someone else? Her words hit harder than I wanted to admit. You don't know him, I said. And you do? I didn't answer. Eleanor smiled thinly. That's what I thought. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Be careful, Arya. You're playing a game you don't understand. And in this world, girls like you don't last long. Then she was gone. I stood there shaking, not from fear, from rage. The door opened again. This time it was Lucien. Reporter's gone, he said. Paid him off. Won't be a problem. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He studied me. What happened? Eleanor. His expression darkened. What did she say? Threats, warnings, the usual. Arya, I'm fine. You're not. I turned away, gripping the railing again. She said I don't understand the game, that I won't last. Lucien moved to stand beside me. She's trying to scare you. It's working. Don't let it. I looked at him. Why do you even care? You said it yourself. This is just a contract. I'm just leverage. You're more than that. The words hung in the air between us. Am I? I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away, just stared out at the city, his jaw tight. Yes, he said finally. You are. Something in my chest cracked open. I don't know how to do this, I whispered. Any of this. I don't know how to be the person they expect me to be. I don't know how to survive in this world. Then don't. I blinked. What? Don't be the person they expect. Be someone else. Someone they can't predict. That's easy for you to say. You're, what? Powerful? Untouchable? He laughed bitterly. Arya, I've spent my entire life building walls so high nobody can see over them. I know what it's like to play a role, to be what people need you to be instead of what you are. Then how do you stand it? I don't. Not always. It was the most honest thing he'd said to me. Come on, he said, offering his hand. Let's get out of here. We can't just leave. Watch me. I took his hand. We walked back through the gala without saying goodbye to anyone. Lucien grabbed our coats, handed mine to me, and led me straight to the car. The driver didn't ask questions, just opened the door and drove. I leaned back in the seat, exhausted. Thank you, I said. For what? For getting me out of there. You would have figured it out eventually. I wasn't so sure. We drove in silence for a while. Then Lucien spoke. I meant what I said earlier, about leaving. I glanced at him. If you want out of this marriage, I'll arrange it, quietly. No scandal. You'll be taken care of financially. You'll never have to see your family again. My throat tightened. Why would you do that? Because you deserve a choice. A real one. I looked out the window, watching the city blur past. I don't want out, I said quietly. You don't? No, I want to stop feeling like I'm drowning. Then we'll teach you to swim. I turned to look at him. We? He met my gaze. You're not alone in this, Arya. Not anymore. Something in his voice made me believe him. The car pulled up to the house. We got out, the night air cold against my skin. Inside, Lucien poured us both drinks. Whiskey, neat. I took mine and sank onto the couch. What happens now? I asked. Now we wait. For what? For your family to make their next move. I frowned. You think they will? I know they will. Richard's desperate, and desperate people are predictable. How do you know so much about this stuff? He sat down across from me, swirling his drink. Because I've been doing it my whole life, reading people, anticipating their moves. It's how I've survived. Sounds exhausting. It is. We sat there in silence, drinking. Can I ask you something else? I said. You're full of questions tonight. Do you ever regret it, this life? He considered that. Sometimes. But regret doesn't change anything. You make a choice, you live with it. Even if the choice wasn't really yours. Especially then. I thought about that. Your father, I said. The reporter tonight. What if they don't stop? What if they keep pushing? Lucien's expression hardened. Then I push back. How? However I need to. There was something dangerous in his tone, something that reminded me exactly who I'd married. You scare me sometimes, I admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. I finished my drink and set the glass down. I'm going to bed. He nodded. Sleep well. I paused at the stairs. Lucien? Yeah? Thank you. For tonight. For all of it. He looked at me for a long moment. Any time, he said quietly. I went upstairs, changed, and crawled into bed. But I didn't sleep. I kept replaying the night in my head. My father's fake warmth. Eleanor's threats. The reporter. Lucien's promise. And somewhere in all of it, I realized something. I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry. And anger, I was learning, was a lot more useful than fear. The next morning, I woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. I dragged myself downstairs, still groggy. Lucien was in the kitchen again, on his phone. He looked up when I entered. "Morning?" "Morning," I mumbled, pouring coffee. "You sleep okay?" "Not really." He set his phone down. "We need to talk." My stomach sank. "About what?" "Your family." "Of course." "What about them?" I asked, sitting down. "I did some digging last night, after we got back, and I found something interesting." "What?" "Your father's debt is worse than I thought. A lot worse. He's got creditors circling, people who won't wait much longer." "So?" "So he's going to come after you again. Try to use you to get to me. Ask for money, favors, whatever he thinks he can squeeze out of this arrangement." I set my coffee down. "What do I do?" "Nothing. You ignore him. Let me handle it." "And if he doesn't stop?" Lucian's gaze was steady. "Then I make him stop." I believed him. "There's something else," he said. "What?" "I want to offer you something." I frowned. "Like what?" "A job. If you want it." I blinked. "A job?" "I run several businesses, legitimate ones. Real estate development mostly, but also some nonprofit work. Foundations that help vulnerable populations, women, kids, people who've been exploited." I stared at him. "You run charities?" Surprised. "A little." He shrugged. "Most people are. But yeah, I do. And I could use someone with fresh eyes. Someone who understands what it's like to be overlooked." "You're offering me a job because I was overlooked?" "I'm offering you a job because you're smart and you need something to do besides sit in this house." I didn't know what to say. "You don't have to decide now," he added. "Just think about it." "Okay. Okay." He picked up his phone again, already moving on to the next thing. But I sat there, staring at my coffee, something warm spreading through my chest. He saw me, not as a transaction, not as leverage, as a person. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. I took the job. Not because I needed the money. Lucien had made it clear I had access to whatever I wanted. But because sitting in that massive house all day was driving me insane. I needed purpose, something that was mine. The foundation was called Second Chances. It operated out of a building downtown, a renovated warehouse with exposed brick and too many windows. The staff was small, maybe a dozen people, but they were passionate. You could see it in the way they talked about their work, the way they stayed late without being asked. My role was loosely defined. Administrative support, they called it. But really, I was there to learn, to watch, to figure out how things worked. The director, a woman named Carmen, was in her 50s with silver streaks in her dark hair and a no-nonsense attitude that reminded me of a teacher I'd once liked. "You're Lucian's wife," she said on my first day, sizing me up. "Aria," I corrected. "Right, Aria." She handed me a stack of files. "These are intake forms from last month. I need them organized by case type and entered into the database. Think you can handle that?" "Yes." "Good. Desk is over there. Coffee's in the break room. We don't do small talk during work hours." I liked her immediately. The work was tedious at first. Data entry, filing, answering phones. But I didn't mind. It was something to focus on that wasn't my family or my marriage or the mess my life had become. And slowly I started to understand what the foundation actually did. They helped women. Women who'd been trafficked, abused, exploited. Women who had nowhere else to go. The foundation provided housing, legal support, job training. It gave them a way out. It gave them what I'd been given. A choice. I spent my first week buried in paperwork, learning names and stories. Maria, who'd escaped a trafficking ring and now worked as a counselor. Jennifer, who'd left an abusive marriage with nothing but her kids and was rebuilding her life one day at a time. Dozens of others, each with their own scars, their own battles. I felt like an imposter among them. They'd survived real horror. What had I survived? A cold family? Neglect? But Carmen saw through that pretty quickly. "Stop it," she said one afternoon, catching me staring at a case file. "Stop what?" "Comparing yourself. Your pain doesn't need to be the worst to be valid. I looked up at her. How did you? Because I've seen that look 1,000 times. Women who think they don't deserve help because someone else has it worse. It's bullshit. I don't know if I belong here. Why? Because you didn't end up on the streets? Because you got lucky? Yeah. Carmen sat down across from me. Luck is just timing. You could have ended up anywhere. The fact that you didn't doesn't make your experience less real. It just means you have a different perspective. Use it. I didn't know what to say. Besides, she added, standing up, Lucien wouldn't have sent you here if he didn't think you could handle it. He talks about me? She smiled slightly. More than you'd think. That stayed with me for the rest of the day. I went home that night exhausted, but oddly satisfied. Lucien was in the living room, reading something on his tablet. How was it? He asked without looking up. Good. Hard, but good. Carmen give you a hard time? A little, but I like her. He smiled, actually smiled. She has that effect. I sat down on the opposite couch. How long have you been funding the foundation? 5 years? Maybe 6. Why? He set the tablet down. Because someone needed to. That's not an answer. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, My mother was trafficked when she was 60, brought over from Eastern Europe with promises of work, ended up in a brothel. She got out eventually, but it destroyed her. She died when I was 12. I stared at him, something heavy settling in my chest. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. Still. The foundation is, I don't know, a way to make sure other people don't end up like her, or if they do, they have a way out. I'd never heard him talk like this. Raw, unguarded. She would have been proud of you, I said quietly. He looked at me, something unreadable in his expression. Maybe. We sat there in silence for a while. It wasn't uncomfortable. Just there. Thank you, I said eventually, for giving me this. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. He didn't argue. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. I worked at the foundation during the day, came home tired but fulfilled. Lucien and I started having dinner together more often. Not every night, but enough that it became normal. We talked, about work, mostly. Sometimes about nothing. He asked about my day, and I asked about his. It was almost domestic. Almost normal. Almost. Because underneath it all, we were still strangers playing house, still bound by a contract neither of us had really wanted. But it was getting harder to remember that. One night, about a month after I started at the foundation, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Eleanor. I hesitated, then answered. What? Arya. Her voice was tight, strained. I need to talk to you. I'm busy. It's important. I don't care. It's about your father. I froze. What about him? He's in trouble. Real trouble. Please, just meet me. Tomorrow, lunch. Why would I do that? Because whether you like it or not, he's still your father, and he needs help. I wanted to hang up, wanted to tell her to deal with it herself, but curiosity won out. Fine. Tomorrow. 1 o'clock. You pick the place. Thank you. She hung up before I could change my mind. Lucien found me in the kitchen 10 minutes later, staring at my phone. Who was that? He asked. Eleanor. His expression darkened. What did she want? To meet. Says my father's in trouble. He is. I told you that. She sounded scared. Good. Maybe she's finally realizing what happens when you play games with the wrong people. I told her I'd meet her. Lucien set his glass down hard. Why? Because I need to know what's going on. You don't. Whatever it is, it's not your problem. He's still my father. He stopped being your father the day he sold you. I flinched. I know that, but I can't just... I need to hear it. Whatever it is, I need to know. Lucien stared at me for a long moment. Then he sighed. Fine, but I'm coming with you. Lucien, not negotiable. If you're meeting her, I'm there. I wanted to argue, but honestly, I was relieved. Okay. The restaurant Eleanor chose was expensive. White tablecloths, hushed conversations, the kind of place where you needed a reservation weeks in advance. We arrived 5 minutes early. Eleanor was already there, sitting at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a glass of white wine. She looked terrible. Her makeup was perfect, her outfit flawless, but there were shadows under her eyes. Her hands shook slightly. "Arya," she said, standing. Then she saw Lucian. "I asked to speak with Arya alone." "And I don't care," Lucian said, pulling out a chair for me. I sat. He sat beside me, his presence a wall between me and Eleanor. She exhaled slowly. "Fine, if that's how it has to be." "What's going on?" I asked. Eleanor took a long drink of wine. "Your father made some poor decisions. Financially, he borrowed money from the wrong people." "How much?" Lucien asked. 3 million, maybe more." I felt the air leave my lungs. 3 million? He thought he could make it back, invested in a development project that fell through, and now the creditors are circling. "So pay them back," I said. "We can't. The accounts are frozen. Assets seized. We have nothing." Lucien leaned back in his chair. "And you want Arya to ask me for the money?" Eleanor's gaze shifted to him. "I'm asking you to help your wife's family." "No." "Lucien, no," he repeated, harder this time. "Richard made his choices. He can live with the consequences." "They'll kill him," Eleanor said, her voice breaking. "These people don't negotiate. If he doesn't pay, then he should have thought about that before he gambled away $3 million. I looked at Lucien, then at Eleanor. "Who are these people?" Eleanor hesitated. "I don't know their names. Richard wouldn't tell me, but they're dangerous. They've already sent warnings, threats." "What kind of threats?" She pulled out her phone, hands shaking, and showed me a photo. It was a picture of their house, our old house, with a message spray-painted across the front. "Pay up, or pay with blood." My stomach turned. "When was this taken?" Lucien asked, his voice sharp. 2 days ago." He pulled out his own phone, typing something quickly. "I need the names. Everyone Richard owes money to." "I told you, I don't know." "Then find out. Because if you want my help, I need information." Eleanor stared at him. "You'll help?" "I didn't say that. I said I need information." She nodded quickly, fumbling with her phone. "I'll get it. I'll send you everything." "Good. Now leave." "But we're done here. Go." Eleanor looked at me, something pleading in her eyes. "Arya, please." "You heard him," I said quietly. "We're done." She stood, gathering her things. "I know you hate us. I know we failed you. But he is still your father. Please, just think about it." Then she left. I sat there staring at the table. "Are you okay?" Lucien asked. "I don't know. This isn't your fault." "I know. And it's not your responsibility." "I know that too." He reached over, covering my hand with his. "But you still feel guilty." I nodded. "Don't. He made his choices. You don't owe him anything." "Then why does it feel like I do?" Lucien didn't have an answer for that. We left the restaurant and drove home in silence. I stared out the window, my mind racing. $3 million. Threats. Dangerous people. My father had really done it this time. Back at the house, Lucien disappeared into his office. I heard him on the phone, his voice low and sharp, making calls, pulling strings. I sat in the living room, numb. An hour later, he emerged. "I made some inquiries," he said. "And?" "Your father borrowed from a loan shark named Viktor Sokolov. Russian, connected, very dangerous." "Can you pay him off?" Lucien sat down across from me. "I could, but I won't." "Why not?" "Because it won't end there. Your father will just dig himself into another hole, and then another. He's a liability, Arya, a black hole. No amount of money will fix that." "So what do we do?" "We do nothing. We let it play out." I stared at him. "You'd let them kill him?" "I'd let him face the consequences of his actions. There's a difference." "Not to me." Lucien's jaw tightened. What do you want me to do? Bail him out? Give him millions of dollars so he can gamble it away again? I want you to help me figure out another option. There isn't one. There has to be. We stared at each other, the tension thick. Please, I said quietly. I know he doesn't deserve it. I know he's a terrible person, but I can't just stand by and let him die. I can't. Lucian closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. You're too kind for your own good. Is that a yes? It's a maybe. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I'll reach out to Sokolov, Lucian said. See if we can negotiate something, but I'm not promising anything. Okay? And Arya? Yeah? This is the last time. Whatever happens, your father is on his own after this. Understood? Understood. He stood up, already pulling out his phone. I need to make some calls. Thank you. He paused. Don't thank me yet. Over the next 2 days, Lucian worked behind the scenes. I didn't ask for details. Didn't want to know. But I could feel the tension radiating off him every time he hung up the phone. On the 3rd day, he told me we had a meeting. With who? I asked. Sokolov. My stomach dropped. Why do I need to be there? Because he asked for you. Why? Because he wants to see who Richard Hale's daughter is. Wants to know if you're worth the trouble. I didn't like the sound of that. Do I have a choice? No. We drove to a building on the east side of the city. Industrial. Run down. The kind of place you didn't go unless you had a reason. Lucian's security team was already there, positioned strategically. Marcus, the head of security, met us at the entrance. He's inside, Marcus said. 3rd floor, 2 guards with him. Weapons? Lucian asked. Probably. Lucian nodded, then looked at me. Stay close. Don't speak unless spoken to. And if something goes wrong, you run. Understood? What could go wrong? Everything. Great. We took the stairs to the 3rd floor. A door at the end of the hallway opened as we approached. Inside was a makeshift office. Desk, chairs. A man sitting behind the desk, flanked by 2 enormous guards. Viktor Sokolov. He was older than I expected. Late 50s, maybe. Bald, with sharp eyes and a scar running down the left side of his face. Lucian Voss, he said, his accent thick. I've heard much about you. Sokolov. Lucian's tone was ice. Victor's gaze shifted to me. And this must be the famous daughter, Arya, yes? I nodded. Sit, please. We sat. The guards didn't move. You want to talk about Richard Hale? Lucian said. Let's talk. Victor smiled. Straight to business. I like that. Yes. Richard Hale owes me $3.2 million. Plus interest. How much interest? Another $800,000. That's excessive. That's the cost of doing business with me. Lucien leaned back. I'll pay you $2 million, total. You forgive the rest. Victor laughed. $2 million? You insult me. $3 million. Final offer. Not enough. Then we're done here. Lucian stood. I followed. Wait, Victor said. Sit down. Lucien didn't move. Make a decision. $3 million or nothing. Victor studied him. Then he looked at me. What do you think, Arya? Is your father worth $3 million? I swallowed hard. Honest, I like that. He tapped his fingers on the desk. Okay, $3 million, but with a condition. What condition? Lucian asked. I want insurance. A guarantee that Richard Hale won't come crying to me again. What kind of insurance? Victor smiled. You work for me. One job. Clean. Simple. You do this, the debt is clear. Richard walks away. Lucian's expression didn't change. What job? I'll tell you when the time comes. No deal. Then your father-in-law dies. The room went silent. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. What's the job? I asked. Both men looked at me. Arya, Lucian started. What's the job? I repeated, looking at Victor. He smiled. Smart girl. The job is information. I need access to certain files, financial records. Your husband has connections. I want him to get them for me. Whose files? Lucien asked. That's for me to know. Not a chance. Then we're done. Lucien grabbed my arm. Let's go. But I didn't move. What if I get the files? I said. Everyone froze. Arya, don't. Lucien started. What if I get them? I repeated, looking at Victor. Would that clear the debt? Victor studied me. You don't have access. But I could get it. How? That's for me to know. He laughed, actually laughed. You have spine. I respect that. He leaned forward. Okay. You get me the files, the debt is clear, but if you fail, I won't. If you fail, he continued, the debt doubles, and your father pays with more than money. I swallowed. Deal. Arya, no. Lucien grabbed my arm harder, but I pulled away. It's done, I said. Victor smiled. I'll send you the details. You have 1 week. We left the building in silence. Lucien didn't speak until we were in the car. Then he exploded. What the hell were you thinking? I was thinking I could save my father. By putting yourself in danger? By making a deal with a man who would kill you without blinking? I can handle it. No, you can't. You don't know that. Yes, I do, because I know Viktor Sokolov, and I know what he does to people who fail him. I looked out the window. Then I won't fail. Arya, I'm doing this, with or without your help. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, with. You're doing it with my help. I looked at him. You'll help me? Do I have a choice? No. He almost smiled. Then I guess we're doing this. I nodded, relief flooding through me. But Arya? Yeah? After this, you're done. No more deals, no more favors. Your father is cut off, completely. Okay. I mean it. I know. We drove home in silence, the weight of what I'd just agreed to settling over me like a stone. 1 week, 1 job, 1 chance. And if I failed, people died. No pressure. The email from Victor arrived at 2 in the morning. I couldn't sleep anyway, so I saw it the moment it came through. No subject line, just an attachment and 3 sentences. Waverly Industries, CEO's private financial records. 1 week. I stared at the screen, my stomach sinking. Waverly Industries was one of the largest investment firms in the city. Their CEO, Marcus Waverly, was untouchable, rich, connected, with enough lawyers to bury anyone who came after him. And Victor wanted his private financial records. I forwarded the email to Lucien, then sat there in the dark, wondering what the hell I'd gotten myself into. My phone buzzed 5 minutes later. You saw it? Lucien's voice was rough, like he'd been awake too. Yeah. This is bad. I know. Waverly's not just some businessman. He's got ties everywhere, political, legal. If we get caught, we won't. Arya, we won't, I repeated. Because we're going to be smart about this. He was quiet for a moment. Come downstairs. I found him in his office, laptop open, documents spread across the desk. I've been looking into Waverly, he said without preamble, trying to find vulnerabilities, points of entry. I sat down across from him. And? He's paranoid, keeps his personal files offline. No cloud storage. Everything's on a private server in his home. So we need to get into his house. Yes? How? Lucien leaned back, rubbing his face. He's hosting a fundraiser next weekend, big charity event, 500 guests. We could get in that way. And do what? Break into his office in the middle of a party? Essentially. I laughed. It came out slightly hysterical. You're insane. You're the one who made the deal. I know, I'm insane too. He almost smiled. We'll need a plan. A good one. And we'll need help. Who? Marcus, my head of security. He's done this kind of thing before. I didn't ask what kind of thing. Didn't want to know? Okay, I said. What do we do first? First, we get invited to the fundraiser. I'll make some calls. Then we figure out the layout of Waverly's house, his security setup, where he keeps the server. How long will that take? A few days, maybe less. We only have a week. I know. We stared at each other across the desk. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. No, but I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. Not this time. He held my gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, we do this, but we do it right. No improvising, no heroics. We stick to the plan. Deal. He turned back to his laptop. Go get some sleep. We start in the morning. I can't sleep. Then sit there and be quiet while I work. I sat, watched him type, make notes, pull up schematics and blueprints. His focus was absolute, surgical. This was his world. Planning, strategy, control. And I'd just dragged him into a mess that could get us both killed. Morning came too fast. Lucien had made calls, pulled strings. By noon, we had invitations to Waverly's fundraiser. Marcus arrived at the house around 2, carrying a laptop and a folder thick with documents. He was a big man, ex-military, with a scar above his left eyebrow, and a handshake that could crush bones, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. "You're really doing this," he said, looking at me. "Apparently." "She's really doing this," Lucien corrected. "We're just making sure she doesn't get killed." Marcus set his laptop on the dining room table. "Okay, let's talk logistics." He pulled up a blueprint of Waverly's house. It was massive. 3 stories, dozens of rooms, security cameras everywhere. "The fundraiser will be on the main floor," Marcus said, pointing. "Ballroom here, dining area here, outdoor terrace. Guests won't have access to the 2nd or 3rd floors." "That's where his office is?" I asked. "3rd floor, corner room, overlooks the garden." "Security?" "Keypad entry at every stairwell. Cameras in the hallways, probably motion sensors too." I felt my stomach drop. "So how do we get up there?" Marcus glanced at Lucien. "We create a distraction." "What kind of distraction?" I asked. "The kind that pulls security away from the monitors long enough for you to slip upstairs." "And then what?" "I don't know how to hack into a server." Marcus pulled a small device from his pocket. It looked like a USB drive. "You don't need to. Just plug this into his computer. It'll clone the hard drive. Takes about 3 minutes. 3 minutes, give or take. And if someone walks in, then you improvise." I looked at Lucien. "This is insane." "I know. We're going to get caught." "Probably not. But maybe." "Yes, maybe." I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. "Okay. Walk me through it, step by step." For the next 4 hours, we planned. Marcus laid out the timeline, the entry points, the exit strategy. Lucien added details, contingencies, backup plans. I listened, trying to memorize everything. We'd arrive at the fundraiser together, mingle, act normal. Then, at exactly 9:30, Marcus would trigger the fire alarm on the 1st floor. Nothing serious, just enough to pull security's attention. While they dealt with that, I'd slip upstairs. Lucien would stay downstairs, creating a second distraction if needed. I'd have 5 minutes, maybe less. Get in, plug in the device. Wait, get out. Simple. Except nothing about this was simple. "What if the door to his office is locked?" I asked. Marcus pulled out another device, smaller. "Bypass key. Works on most standard locks." "Most?" 90%. "And the other 10%? You come back downstairs and we abort." I nodded slowly. "Okay." "But you sure you can do this?" Marcus asked. "No, but I'm going to try." He studied me for a moment. Then he nodded. "Good enough." The next few days were a blur. I went to work at the foundation, tried to act normal, but my mind was elsewhere, running through the plan, imagining everything that could go wrong. Carmen noticed. "You okay?" she asked one afternoon, catching me staring at my computer screen. "Yeah, just tired. You look stressed." "I am." She sat down across from me. "Anything I can help with?" I wanted to tell her, wanted to unload everything, but I couldn't. "Just personal stuff," I said. She nodded. "Well, if you need to talk, I'm here." "Thanks." She stood up, then paused. "Lucien cares about you, you know." I looked up sharply. "What?" "He called me last week, asked how you were doing, if you seemed happy." "He did?" "Yeah, said he wanted to make sure this job was good for you, that you weren't just going through the motions." Something warm spread through my chest. "What did you tell him?" "That you're one of the hardest workers I've ever seen, and that you actually give a damn, which is rare." I didn't know what to say. "He's a good man," Carmen continued. "Doesn't show it much, but he is." I know, she smiled. Good. Just thought you should hear it. That night, I found Lucien in the kitchen, making dinner. Actually, making dinner. Not ordering in, not asking the chef to prepare something. You cook? I asked, surprised. He glanced up. Sometimes, when I'm stressed. What are you making? Pasta. Nothing fancy. I sat at the counter, watching him work. His movements were efficient, practiced. Carmen said you called her. He didn't look up. Did she? She said you wanted to make sure I was happy. I wanted to make sure the job was a good fit. Lucien. He stopped, meeting my eyes. What? Thank you. For what? For caring, even when you pretend you don't. His expression softened slightly. I'm not pretending. I know. We held each other's gaze for a moment. Then he turned back to the stove. Set the table, he said. Food's almost ready. We ate together in comfortable silence. It felt normal, domestic, like we were a real couple. The thought should have scared me. It didn't. The night of the fundraiser arrived. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the dress Lucien had picked out. It was emerald green, floor length, with a slit up one side, elegant but not flashy. My hands were shaking. You look beautiful. I turned. Lucien stood in the doorway wearing a black suit that probably cost more than a car. I look terrified, I said. That too. He walked over, taking my hands. We don't have to do this. We can walk away right now. Pay Victor the money. Let your father deal with his own mess. No, I need to do this. Why? Because if I don't, I'll always wonder if I could have. And I can't live with that. He squeezed my hands. Okay, then let's do this. The drive to Waverly's estate took 30 minutes. The house was even bigger than I'd imagined. Sprawling grounds, fountains, security at every entrance, luxury that bordered on obscene. We handed our invitations to a man at the door, then stepped inside. The ballroom was packed, hundreds of people in designer clothes, drinking champagne, pretending to care about whatever cause this fundraiser supported. Lucien's hand found mine. Remember the plan. I remember. Stay calm, act natural. I know. And Arya? Yeah? If anything goes wrong, you run. You don't wait for me. You don't try to be a hero. You just run. I nodded. We moved through the crowd, making small talk with people whose names I forgot immediately. Lucien was good at this. Charming, confident. Nobody would ever guess we were planning a crime. At 9:15, Marcus appeared across the room. He caught Lucien's eye and nodded once. 15 minutes. My heart started pounding. We drifted toward the edge of the ballroom, closer to the stairwell. Lucien kept talking to someone about real estate, his voice steady, but his hand tightened on mine. 9:25. A waiter passed with champagne. I grabbed a glass just to have something to do with my hands. 9:28. Marcus moved toward the far side of the room. 9:29. Lucien leaned in, his mouth close to my ear. It's time. 9:30. The fire alarm went off. People jumped, started moving toward the exits. Not panicking, not yet, but confused. Security rushed past us, heading toward the source. Go, Lucien whispered. I slipped away from him, moving against the crowd. Found the stairwell. The door was unlocked. Marcus had taken care of that. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heart hammering. Second floor, empty. Third floor. I paused at the door, listening. Nothing. I stepped into the hallway. Cameras in the corners. Marcus said he'd loop the feeds, but I didn't know if it had worked. I walked quickly, trying to look like I belonged there. Waverly's office, corner room. The door was locked. I pulled out the bypass key Marcus had given me, slid it into the lock, turned. Click. The door opened. I stepped inside, closing it behind me. The office was huge. Dark wood, expensive art. A massive desk with 3 monitors. I crossed to the computer, my hands shaking. Pulled out the USB device. The computer was password protected. Shit. I stared at the screen, panic rising. Then I remembered something Marcus had said. Waverly was paranoid, but he was also arrogant. Arrogant people use simple passwords. I tried his birthday. Nothing. His company name, nothing. His daughter's name. The screen unlocked. I exhaled, plugging in the device. A progress bar appeared. 3 minutes. I glanced at the door. Listened. Nothing. 2 minutes, 50 seconds. I paced. Checked the door again. Still nothing. 2 minutes. Come on, come on. 1 minute 30. Footsteps in the hallway. I froze. The footsteps stopped outside the door. 1 minute. The doorknob turned. I yanked the USB device out, shoved it in my bra, and dove behind the desk. The door opened. I'm telling you, the alarm's just a malfunction, a man's voice said. Waverly. Still need to check the floors, another voice replied. Security. Fine, but make it quick, I have guests. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. Footsteps crossed the room. A light clicked on. Everything looks fine in here. Told you. The light clicked off. Footsteps retreated. The door closed. I stayed there, frozen, counting to 60. Then I stood, legs shaking, and moved to the door. Cracked it open. Hallway empty. I slipped out, walking fast but not running. Down the stairs, second floor, first floor, back into the crowd. Lucien found me immediately. His face was pale. Are you okay? Yeah, I got it. The whole thing? I don't know, maybe. I had to pull it early. He cursed under his breath. Let's get out of here. We made our excuses, thanked our hosts, and left. In the car, I finally let myself breathe. That was too close, Lucien. Lucien said. I know. Did anyone see you? I don't think so. He pulled out his phone, texting Marcus. A moment later, Marcus replied, He says the feeds were clean, no sign of you. I leaned back in the seat, closing my eyes. Thank God. Let me see the device. I pulled it out, handing it to him. He plugged it into his phone, checking the files. It's incomplete, he said after a moment. But there's enough here, bank records, offshore accounts, some emails. Will Victor accept it? He'll have to. We drove home in silence. Inside, Lucien poured us both drinks. Whiskey, straight. You did good, he said. I almost got caught. But you didn't. I downed the whiskey, letting it burn. What happens now? Now we send this to Victor, and we wait. And if it's not enough, then we figure something else out. I wanted to believe him. Lucien sent the files that night. Victor's response came an hour later. Acceptable. Debt cleared. Don't contact me again. I stared at the message, something heavy lifting from my chest. It's done, I said. Lucien read the message over my shoulder. It's done. I should have felt relieved, triumphant even. Instead, I just felt tired. I need to tell my father, I said. No. Lucien. No, he repeated. You did your part. He doesn't need to know how, and he doesn't deserve your reassurance. He's still my father. He's a stranger who shares your DNA, that's all. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't, because he was right. The next morning, I called Eleanor. It's handled, I said when she answered. What? How? It doesn't matter. The debt's clear. Victor won't come after him. She was silent for a moment. Then she started crying. Thank you. Aria, thank you so much. I hung up. I didn't want her gratitude. Didn't want anything from her. I just wanted it to be over. And it was. Days passed. Then a week. No word from Victor. No threats. No follow-up. My father never called. Never thanked me. Never even acknowledged what I'd done. But I hadn't expected him to. I went back to work at the foundation, threw myself into the cases, the people, the work that actually mattered, and slowly I started to feel like myself again. One night, about 2 weeks after the fundraiser, Lucien found me in the library. Hey, I looked up from my book. Hey, can we talk? Sure. He sat down across from me and I noticed he looked nervous. Lucien never looked nervous. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing's wrong. I wanted to say something. Okay. He took a breath. What you did. For your father. It was brave, stupid, but brave. Thanks? I mean it. You could have walked away. Let him face the consequences. But you didn't, even though he didn't deserve it, even though it put you at risk. I couldn't just, I know, and that's what I'm trying to say. You have this core of decency that most people don't. You care, even when it hurts you, and I respect that. I didn't know what to say. You're not just a contract to me, he continued. You're not just leverage or a business deal. You're Arya, and I'm glad you're here. Something in my chest cracked open. I'm glad I'm here too, I whispered. He smiled. Actually smiled. Good. We sat there for a moment, the air between us shifting. Lucienne? Yeah? Thank you for everything, for helping me, for protecting me, for seeing me. His expression softened. You're easy to see. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I did the only thing I could think of. I closed the distance between us and kissed him. It was brief, tentative, but it was real. When I pulled back, he was staring at me. Sorry, I said quickly. I shouldn't have. He kissed me back. Longer this time, deeper. And when we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. I've wanted to do that for weeks, he admitted. Me too, he laughed softly. We're terrible at this contract marriage thing. The worst. Good. He kissed me again, and I felt something settle into place. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was real. Things changed after that night in the library. Not dramatically, not in some sweeping romantic gesture, but in small ways that mattered more. Lucien started joining me for breakfast. We'd sit at the kitchen counter, coffee between us, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his deals, the parts he could share. I told him about the foundation, the women I was helping, the cases that kept me up at night. We moved around each other differently. His hand would find mine when we watched TV. I'd lean against him without thinking, small touches that felt enormous. We didn't talk about what we were, didn't label it, just let it exist. But I knew. And I was pretty sure he did too. Work at the foundation became my anchor. Carmen promoted me after a month, gave me actual responsibilities beyond filing. I started conducting intake interviews, helping women navigate the legal system, connecting them with resources. It was hard work, emotionally draining, but it mattered. One afternoon, about 6 weeks after the fundraiser, I was in the middle of an intake when my phone buzzed. Eleanor. I ignored it. She called again and again. Finally, I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. What? Arya, thank God, I've been trying to reach you. I'm at work. What do you want? It's your father. He's in the hospital. My stomach dropped. What happened? Heart attack this morning. They're saying it's serious. I closed my eyes, leaning against the wall. How serious? They don't know yet. He's in surgery now. I thought you should know. Which hospital? Mercy General, 4th floor ICU. I hung up without saying goodbye. Back in the office, I grabbed my coat. Carmen looked up from her desk. Everything okay? Family emergency. I have to go. Take the time you need. I drove to the hospital in a daze. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I should have felt something. Worry, fear, grief. But I just felt numb. Eleanor was in the waiting room when I arrived. She looked smaller somehow, older. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. Arya. She stood. You came. You said he was in surgery. He is. They're doing a bypass, said it could take hours. I sat down in one of the plastic chairs. Eleanor sat beside me. I know you hate us, she said quietly. I know we failed you, but he's still your father. Biologically, she flinched. Fair. We sat in silence for a while. Then she spoke again. I know you saved him. From Victor. I don't know how, and Richard wouldn't tell me. But I know it was you. I didn't respond. I never understood you, she continued. Why you stayed quiet all those years, why you never fought back. But I think I get it now. You were just trying to survive. I'm still trying. I know. And I'm sorry for all of it, for not protecting you, for not seeing you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Regret. It's too late for apologies, I said. I know, but I had to say it anyway. A doctor appeared an hour later. Young, tired, still in scrubs. Family of Richard Hale? Eleanor shot to her feet. Yes, how is he? The surgery went well. We were able to repair the blockage, but he's not out of the woods yet. The next 48 hours are critical. Can we see him? Not yet. He's in recovery. We'll let you know when he's stable. The doctor left. Eleanor sank back into her chair, crying quietly. I should have comforted her, should have said something, but I couldn't. I pulled out my phone and texted Lucien. At the hospital, my father had a heart attack. His response came immediately. Do you want me to come? No, I'm okay. Are you sure? Yes. Call me if you need anything. I stared at the message for a moment, something warm spreading through my chest. 3 hours later, they let us see him. Richard Hale looked small in the hospital bed. Pale, fragile, hooked up to machines that beeped and hummed. Not the intimidating man I'd grown up fearing, just a sick old man who'd made terrible choices. Eleanor went to his bedside, taking his hand. Richard, I'm here. He didn't respond, still unconscious. I stood in the doorway, watching. Come in, Eleanor said softly. Please. I stepped inside, but didn't go near the bed. He'd want to see you, she said. Would he? She didn't answer. I looked at my father, this stranger who'd shaped my entire life without ever really knowing me. I'm not staying, I said. I just wanted to see that he was alive. Arya, I'm glad he's okay, but I can't do this. I can't pretend we're a family. We are a family. No, we're people who share a name, that's all. I turned to leave. He does love you, Eleanor said. In his own way. I paused at the door. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Then I left. Lucien was waiting when I got home. He didn't ask how I was, didn't push for details, just pulled me into his arms and held me. I didn't cry, but I let him hold me anyway. You okay? He asked finally. I don't know, maybe. What do you need? I need to forget about them. All of them. He pulled back, looking at me. Then let's make that happen. Over the next few weeks, I did exactly that. I stopped checking my phone for calls from Eleanor, stopped wondering if my father would recover, stopped caring about the family that had never cared about me. Instead, I focused on what mattered, the foundation, the women I was helping, the life I was building, and Lucien. We grew closer in ways I hadn't expected. He started opening up, telling me things he'd never told anyone, about his mother, his childhood, the choices that had led him to this life. I told him things too, about feeling invisible, about the years of neglect, about the moment I'd realized I was worth more than they'd ever given me credit for. We were both broken in different ways, but somehow we fit. One night, about 2 months after my father's heart attack, Lucien came home with papers. What are those? I asked. Divorce papers. My heart stopped. What? For your father and Eleanor. He's been asking for them. Wants to separate their assets before the creditors come back. I blinked. He's divorcing her? Looks like it. Does she know? Probably not yet. I stared at the papers. Good. Lucien looked at me. Good? Yeah. Maybe she'll finally understand what it feels like to be discarded. That's cold. I learned from the best. He smiled slightly. Fair. He set the papers aside, then pulled out another envelope. This came for you today. I opened it. Inside was a letter from my father's lawyer. Richard Hale was removing me from his will. I read it twice, making sure I understood. Then I laughed. What's funny? Lucien asked. He's cutting me out. Like I ever expected anything from him. Does it bother you? Not even a little. And I meant it. Whatever connection I'd had to that family, it was gone now. Severed completely. I was free. The foundation threw a fundraiser a month later. It was Carmen's idea. A gala to raise money for expansion. More housing, more resources, more women helped. I helped plan it, sent invitations, coordinated with vendors. It felt good to build something instead of just surviving. Lucien came with me, of course. He donated a significant amount to the cause, though he'd done it quietly, without fanfare. The night of the event, I stood in the ballroom, watching people mingle and donate and care about something bigger than themselves. Carmen found me near the bar. "You did good," she said. "We did good." "No, this was you. You pushed for this. You made it happen." I smiled. "Thanks." "How are you doing? Really?" I thought about it. "Better? A lot better." "Good. You deserve it." Lucien appeared beside me, handing me a glass of wine. "Having fun?" "Actually, yes." He smiled. "Good." The rest of the night passed in a blur. Speeches, donations, people thanking me for work I'd barely started. But it felt right. When we got home, I kicked off my heels and collapsed on the couch. Lucien sat beside me, loosening his tie. "That was a good night," he said. "It was. You looked happy." "I am happy." He turned to look at me. "Really?" "Really." He took my hand, lacing his fingers through mine. "I'm glad." We sat there for a moment, the silence comfortable. "Arya?" "Yeah?" "I want to make this real." I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "This, us, the marriage. I want it to be real, not a contract, not a business arrangement. Real." My heart was pounding. "Are you serious?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I love you." The words hung in the air between us. I stared at him, something cracking open in my chest. "You love me?" "Yes. I think I have for a while now. I just didn't know how to say it." Tears pricked at my eyes. "I love you too." He smiled, pulling me closer. "Then let's do this. For real." I kissed him. Long and deep and full of promise. When we pulled apart, I was crying. "Happy tears?" he asked. "The happiest." Life settled into something resembling normal after that. Lucien and I renewed our vows. Quietly. Just the two of us and a judge. No family, no fanfare. Just us, choosing each other. I kept working at the foundation. Carmen promoted me again, made me director of outreach. I started traveling, speaking at events, raising awareness. It was fulfilling in ways I'd never imagined. Lucien started backing away from the darker parts of his business. Not completely. Some things couldn't be undone, but enough that he could sleep at night. We talked about the future, about what we wanted, about building something together. And slowly we did. One afternoon, about a year after we'd renewed our vows, I got a call from an unknown number. "Hello." "Arya, it's Eleanor." I hadn't heard from her in months. "What do you want?" "I wanted to let you know. Your father passed away. This morning. Peacefully. In his sleep." I sat down, the news settling over me. "Arya, are you there?" "Yeah, I'm here." "The funeral is next week. I thought you should know." "Okay. Will you come?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "No." "Arya, no," I repeated. "I said goodbye a long time ago. I don't need to do it again." She was quiet for a moment. "I understand." "Is there anything else?" "No, that's all. I just thought you should know." "Okay. Take care, Eleanor." I hung up. Lucien found me in the kitchen a few minutes later. "Who was that?" "Eleanor, my father died." He sat down beside me. "How do you feel?" "I don't know. Empty, maybe, but not sad." "That's okay." "Is it?" "Yes. You don't owe him grief." I leaned against him. "I keep waiting to feel something, guilt, regret, anything, but I don't." "Then don't force it. You're allowed to feel nothing." I closed my eyes. "Thank you." "For what?" "For understanding." He kissed the top of my head. "Always." I didn't go to the funeral, but I did go visit my mother's grave a few days later. It had been years since I'd been there. I stood in front of the headstone, reading her name, Catherine Ann Hale, beloved mother. "I miss you," I said quietly. "I wish you were here. I wish you could have seen who I became." The wind rustled through the trees. I think you'd be proud of me, I continued. I hope you would be. I stayed for a while, just sitting there, talking to her, telling her about my life, about Lucian, about the foundation. When I finally left, I felt lighter, like I'd let go of something I'd been carrying for too long. 2 years later, the foundation had expanded to 3 cities. We'd helped hundreds of women, given them housing, jobs, hope. I stood on stage at a conference speaking about the work we were doing, about the importance of giving people choices. Lucien was in the audience, watching. When I finished, he was the first to stand and applaud. Afterward, we walked through the city, hand in hand. You were amazing up there, he said. I was nervous. You didn't show it. I smiled. Good. We stopped at a park bench, sitting down. I've been thinking, Lucien said. About what? About legacy, what we leave behind. And I want to do more with the foundation, maybe start a scholarship program, help kids who've been in the system. I looked at him. Really? Yeah, I think it's time. I think that's a great idea. He smiled. Good. Then let's do it. We sat there for a while watching people pass. Families, couples, kids playing. You know what's funny? I said. What? I spent my whole life feeling invisible, like I didn't matter, and now I'm here, building something that matters. With you. He squeezed my hand. You always mattered. You just needed someone to see it. You saw it. Because you let me. I leaned against him, watching the sun set over the city. This wasn't the life I'd imagined, not even close. But it was mine, and for the first time in my life, that was enough. 5 years after the wedding, I stood in the foundation's new headquarters. It was massive, 5 floors, state-of-the-art facilities, room for hundreds of women. Carmen stood beside me, tears in her eyes. We did it, she said. We did. Lucien appeared, carrying a bottle of champagne. Thought we should celebrate. We should. He popped the cork, pouring 3 glasses. To second chances, Carmen said, raising hers. To second chances, I repeated. We drank, and I felt something settle into place. This was it. This was the life I'd built from nothing. Not perfect, not easy, but mine. Later that night, Lucien and I stood on the balcony of our home, looking out at the city. You ever regret it? I asked. Marrying me? Never. Not even in the beginning? Especially not in the beginning. That's when I realized you were worth fighting for. I smiled. You're such a sap. Only for you. We stood there in comfortable silence. I love you, I said. I love you too. And I meant it. I'd started this journey as a transaction. A girl nobody wanted, sold to a man I'd been taught to fear. But somewhere along the way, I'd found myself. I'd found my voice, my purpose, my strength. I'd found love. Not the fairy tale kind. The messy, complicated, real kind. The kind worth fighting for. I looked at Lucien, this man who'd given me a choice when no one else would. Who'd seen me when I was invisible. Who'd loved me when I didn't know how to love myself. Thank you, I said. For what? For everything. He pulled me close. Thank you for choosing to stay. I kissed him, and in that moment, I knew. I wasn't the girl they sold anymore. I was the woman I chose to become, and that made all the difference.